And that's when that, like, gut-wrenching. And I was like, oh, no one's saving me tonight.
It started with one live stream that should never have happened. No publicist, no legal filter, no warning. Just Nikki Heaton sitting in front of her phone, trembling and saying the names no one dared to put together in the same sentence. Diddy and Ye. She said they weren't just icons, they were predators. And in that moment, it wasn't an influencer meltdown or a career stunt. It was an alarm because Diddy was already behind bars in Brooklyn, waiting on RICO charges that could keep him there for life. And yeah, I was halfway across the world, hiding out in Tokyo under a different name, pretending to work on music. What Heaton said next cracked open the silence around both of them. She called them rapists, said there were dozens of others still too afraid to speak, and warned that Diddy's arrest was only the first tremor before the real collapse.
And at this point, they had ripped my shirt off and was trying to get my pants off. And I realized that I was completely alone and closed my eyes for a second. And I was like, God help me. What do I do?
She described the night like it was burned into her memory. 10 years ago, 2014. She was 19, fresh off her first charting single, the acoustic YouTube sweetheart who thought she'd made it. Ye had invited her to a recording session, her dream phone call. And she walked into a studio expecting mentorship. What she found instead, she said, was Diddy and Ye together, completely off their heads, surrounded by men who pretended not to see. She tried to leave, but they told her to relax and have a drink. She said no, sensing the setup, pretending to sip while their smiles turned mean. Then, one by one, the women in the room were gone. Only 5 men remained. Ye, Diddy and 3 members of West's crew. When they told her to take off her shirt because the studio was too hot, she thought they were joking until hands were on her. She said she fought them, said they tore her shirt, and said she mouthed, "Help!" to one of West's assistants who looked right at her and turned away. That's the part that still haunts her, she said. Not the assault itself, but the silence. The way everyone in the room looked away as if she wasn't there. She lunged forward, broke free, ran half-dressed into another studio, and hid until she could get an Uber home. It was over in minutes. But the damage followed her for a decade. For years she said nothing. Too afraid. Too convinced that no one would believe her. Then came the lawsuits, the RICO case, and the federal raids. She said she couldn't keep the secret anymore.
Closed and I pulled this and I said, God help me, what do I do? And it was like clear as day. I heard this in my head. And it didn't make any sense. I heard, go towards them. And I was like, the one time I asked God for help, Satan answers, because I go towards these 2 predators who are assaulting me. Like, why would I do that?
By the time she spoke, Diddy's empire was already collapsing. Arrested on September 16, 2024, after a federal investigation that traced years of coercion, intimidation, and so-called parties, the same gatherings that had once made him a king of celebrity culture. Prosecutors accused him of using his entire business network, Bad Boy Entertainment, fashion lines, and media companies as a front for something closer to an organized operation. The charges were racketeering, trafficking, and transportation for illicit purposes. Witnesses called it an empire of silence. And Nicki's story fit right into the pattern. She wasn't describing an isolated attack. She was describing the operating system of the empire itself. What makes her confession hit harder is who she was back then. A self-taught singer who had learned guitar at 9, taught herself to sing with a Diana Ross CD, and hustled her way from suburban bedrooms to Billboard charts.
I was behind every back. I pulled the door, slipped out, stabbing my face. And I ran across the walls, across the corridor, and I stayed inside of an empty studio that was glass. And I sat for like 25 minutes, like talking, like, what do I do? And I'm texting my manager and she's not answering.
She just left home, just signed a deal with All Def Digital, and just thought she'd met her heroes. Had been one of her idols, Diddy, a legend. She said she walked in starstruck and walked out ruined. And when she finally told her story years later, her timing collided with a second shockwave. West's former assistant, Lauren Pisciotta, filed her own lawsuit claiming he spiked her at a Diddy party in Santa Monica. That case pulled the thread tighter. Pisciotta's legal filing, made public in October 2024, described almost the same setting. A music studio, a Diddy-hosted gathering. Yeah, insisting everyone drink or leave. Within minutes, she said she started to lose control of her body, slipping into a fog. The next morning, she woke up disoriented, ashamed, and confused. Later, when Yet allegedly admitted they'd hooked up, she realized it hadn't been consensual at all. The court documents detailed the same pattern: intoxication, control, humiliation. And when Heaton's live stream dropped days later, she claimed she'd been there that night, that she saw it happen. Two stories 10 years apart, connecting the same men, the same circles, and the same parties. Federal investigators have been calling it a criminal network, and insiders say Heaton's statement may end up as evidence in the broader RICO case. Prosecutors have already argued that Diddy's business empire functioned like a criminal organization, complete with hierarchy, silence, and coercion. Former employees have testified that they booked travel for women, purchased supplies, and even coordinated after-hours cleanup to conceal what happened inside those rooms. Cassie Venter's lawsuit back in 2023 was the first domino, alleging control, threats, forced encounters, and violence. But Heaton's account reframes it. If Cassie showed what life looked like inside Diddy's orbit, Nicki showed how newcomers were recruited into it. Behind that, the timing is impossible to ignore. As Diddy's trial unfolded in New York, witnesses testified about freak-off events, the so-called entertainment nights that blurred lines between performance and degradation. Security guards described hush payments. Assistants described substance runs. Prosecutors painted a picture of a man who built an empire not just on music, but on manipulation. Diddy's team continues to deny everything, calling the charges exaggerated and unfair. But as the trial drags on, more people keep stepping forward. Over 100 alleged victims have been named across civil suits. Some insiders claim federal investigators are still sifting through old footage, text logs, and hard drives seized during the raids.
All sorts of reasons. Donald Trump feels that he was unfairly targeted by the Justice Department, and particularly the Southern District of New York.
Sure.
And so, in Diddy's case, he is was prosecuted by the Southern District of New York.
West's story, meanwhile, is unraveling overseas. His lawyers have dismissed Pisciotta's lawsuit as blackmail, but the new amended complaint adds even darker allegations from their time working together in 2021 and 2022. Forced contact, verbal coercion, even confinement. He has said nothing publicly since, choosing to stay out of the country, reportedly living out of a Tokyo hotel under heavy security. Sources close to his former label say he's off the
concerned that Sean Diddy Combs could be assaulted, violently assaulted. Is that a thing? Because based on what was said in court, it feels like a thing.
Grid trying to finish an album while his team fights lawsuits on 2 continents. But Heaton's video brought him right back into the spotlight, forcing the question, what really happened in those studios, and who else was there? The parallels are too precise to ignore.
Because she has made this very clear. She wants her kids to have a relationship with their father. She's not trying to stand in the way of that. But when he says things like this, at some point, she has to be thinking, I don't know if this is good for our kids.